Welcome and thanks for joining us today on Sales Leadership Webinar Series Part 1. Today's topic is Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. I'm Kirti. I work on the marketing team for Zoho CRM. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to take care of a few housekeeping items. If you have questions during the webinar, feel free to type it in the comment box on your screen. For any questions that aren't answered throughout the presentation, we'll have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. You can download some worksheets from handout session in the GoToWebinar panel, which you see on your screen. Also confirm through the comment box if my voice is audible and you can view the screen. Okay, thanks for confirming. We are also recording this session and we'll be sending out a link to the recorded version for your reference. Okay, now that we took care of the housekeeping items, let's get started. As the host of the Sales Leadership Webinar Series, I want to give you a bit more information of what Zoho is. Zoho has been in business for over 20 years and has grown from a bootstrap startup to a profitable organization that serves over 30 million customers worldwide. Isn't it interesting? Our mission is to provide quality products that business trusts to run their entire organization, from their HR and finance department to their sales, marketing, and support departments. Zoho serves businesses of all sizes, from the startup community to enterprise-level organizations. So now talking about Zoho CRM. Zoho CRM is one of the leading CRM solutions in the market. It automates your daily sales activities, customizes the sales process, quickly converts your prospects into customers, and creates dynamic reports and dashboards to monitor your business performance. Now, we are really excited to be launching this series of webinars, and we hope that you find the information helpful. It's now my pleasure to introduce certified speaker, leadership teacher, and coach with the John Maxwell team, Mr. Greene. Zoho has partnered with Mr. Greene in the past at different events, and we always receive great feedback from our audience. So let's go ahead and get started. Today's agenda is how to make every communication an opportunity for a powerful connection. Drawing from John Maxwell's book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect, Israel covers connecting principles with people, from one-on-one chats to large audiences, to make every communication an opportunity for a powerful connection. I have got something interesting for you guys. Throughout the webinar today, please feel free to share a tweet about the content or something you thought was interesting. We'll be selecting 10 of the best tweets and we'll send you a surprise. Don't forget to tag us Zoho CRM and use hashtag #SalesLeaders. I repeat, please do share the content or something you thought was interesting by tweeting at Zoho CRM and use hashtag #SalesLeaders. Now, I'll go ahead and let Mr. Greene take over from here to start his first webinar on Everyone Communicates, Few Connect, Part 1. Over to you, Mr. Israel.
Kirti, thank you so much for that warm welcome. It is so exciting to be here and be a part of this leadership series. To everyone on the call, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, I want to welcome you and say thank you for joining us. As Kirti mentioned, I'm Israel Greene, certified speaker, leadership teacher, and coach with the John Maxwell team. Now, the topic that we're covering today is honestly, it's one of my favorite John Maxwell workshops that I facilitate. I love sharing this with people because of the impact that it's had on me personally as a manager and as a leader, of which I'll share a couple of those stories throughout the session. But I especially love this because of the fact that the content is applicable to more than just business. So regardless of the title, the position you hold, whatever level of leadership that you're sitting at today, the situation, or the individuals involved, it doesn't matter about any of that. These principles and practices can help you increase your influence in every single situation. Now, when I do these trainings, either live or web-based, I like to kick off the session by always asking two basic questions at the start of every one without fail. The very first one is, who wants results? Very basic question. Who wants results? And then the second question is a bit more complicated because it makes you think. But the second question is, what is your intention during this time? Now, I'm sure that when I asked the first one, if we were all in the room together, almost every single hand would go up. And for the few that didn't put their hands up, if they were being honest, they would probably say yes as well. Because the bottom line is, we all want to improve our results, right? Whatever they are. For some, it may be money, more time, a lifestyle change, relationships, health. Whatever that end result is, it all comes back to one thing, and that is connecting. And it doesn't matter who you are, you can improve your results by improving your ability to connect and influence people in an ethical way. Now, with regard to the second question of what is your intention for this time, I challenge you to be very clear on that answer. Write it down, and more than anything, take action on it. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little bit of secret here, and this is a free tip for you. The biggest thing that distinguishes leaders from the rest of the pack, and the major difference between those that crush it and those that don't, is that the ones that crush it are action takers. That's the secret. They are really powerful action takers. Even if it's an imperfect action, they are the ones that get farther ahead than the ones that take no action at all. So as we go through this session, whether you're going to be with us for just today, for the entire 4 weeks, or just between the principles and the practices, I want you to think about those moments and opportunities where you can take action and apply these principles to produce results. Now, you're going to hear me mention the term results all the way throughout this presentation, because at the end of the day, for us as a leader, it's all about adding value and driving results. So my purpose here today is to raise your awareness of leadership as a learnable and a teachable skill, and to give you some really practical information that you can apply right away. Now, I know that we have all types of individuals from different walks of life on this call, so I want to convince you, if you're not already, that we are all leaders, one way or another, and leadership comes down to one thing: influence. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And influence depends on our ability to connect with people. Now, for the sake of time, we're going to jump right in here. Everyone communicates if you connect. It's laid out in a very powerful learning system that's split into two parts: connecting principles, which we'll cover this week, and connecting practices, which we're going to cover next week. Now, when you integrate these two and you apply them, these lessons will help you redefine, and they're going to help you reinvent your personal and your professional and family relationships. Now, obviously, there's more to connecting than we can cover here today. In fact, if we were covering all the content, this is normally about a half-a-day workshop with all of the exercises as well. But for the sake of this session, we're going to be covering a very small portion. So jumping right in, connecting principle number 1, connecting increases your influence in every situation. Connecting increases your influence in every situation. Now, first, I want to make sure that we understand why connecting is so vital. According to the Harvard Business Review, the number 1 criteria for advancement and promotion for professionals is an ability to communicate effectively. And to level set and ensure that we're all operating on the same definition for the course of this, the definition of connecting, according to John Maxwell, is connecting is the ability to identify with people and relate to them in a way that it increases our influence with them. Connecting is the ability to identify with people and relate to them in a way that it increases our influence with them. When you connect with others, you position yourself to make the most of your skills and your talents. And when you don't connect, you have a lot to overcome just to get to that average or neutral starting position. So think about as a sales executive, as a leader with the team that you're managing. If you're not connecting, you are starting about 10 feet back. In other words, when we communicate with individuals enough to get to know them and can identify with them, and until we can say, I understand exactly what they know and what they're going through, and because of that ability, we begin to increase our influence with them. Now, presidential historian Robert Dallek, he says that successful presidents exhibit 5 skills and qualities that enable them to achieve things that others don't. And they are vision, pragmatism, consensus building, charisma, and trustworthiness. Vision, pragmatism, consensus building, charisma, and trustworthiness. Putting aside our political opinions and biases for a moment, and let's look at the abilities of some of the past presidents. For those of us a little bit older that are on the call, you might remember Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. Consider the differences in connecting skills between Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter during that great debate and that election process. During their debate, it was reported that Carter came across as being very, very cold, he was impersonal, and he constantly quoted facts and figures. Now, on the flip side of that coin, in contrast, Ronald Reagan was more engaged with the audience, and he was more engaged with Carter, in fact. Reagan was connected with the audience and the American people, and as a result, he got dubbed the Great Communicator. That's not a bad title to have. It's been said that 4 of the 5 of these skills to be a successful leader have to do with connecting. So I want to do a quick poll, and I need your participation here. Out of these 5 skills, which one does not have to do with connecting? And we'll take about 30 seconds for this poll. So which one out of these 5 skills do not have to do with connecting? We've got vision, pragmatism, consensus building, charisma, and trustworthiness. We'll give it about another 20 seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the answer is pragmatism. Pragmatism is one of the skills that does not have to do with connecting. And it looks like 38% of those said pragmatism, 25% said vision, and 19% said charisma, and 13% said consensus building. So pragmatism is it. Jay Hall, PhD of telemetrics, conducted a study on the performance of 16,000 executives, and he concluded that there is a direct correlation between achievement and the ability to care for and connect with people. He outlined that there is a distinct difference between high achievers, average achievers, and low achievers. And if you've downloaded the handouts, you're going to see this sheet, this list on your sheets. So I want you to think about what I call ACT, A-C-T, which stands for apply, change, or transfer or train. As you go through this list, think about where you are 75 to 80% of the time. And if you're not there, and you need to transition over to that, write a big A beside that portion. So quickly going through these, high achievers, they care about their people as well as the profits. They view subordinates optimistically. They seek advice from those under them, and they actively listen. For average achievers, their focus is primarily on the production, and they focus more on their own status than anything else. They're reluctant to seek advice from those under them, and they listen only to the directives of those superiors. For the low achievers, preoccupied with own security, they show a basic distrust of anyone below them. They do not seek out advice. They operate in a vacuum and a silo, and they avoid communication and rely primarily on policy manuals. Now, there are normally 3 different situations in which you'll need to connect, one-on-one, in groups, and with an audience. And I'm going to share with you 3 tips that will help you when trying to connect in one-on-one. Connecting in one-on-one situations is more important than being able to do it in a group or with an audience. And the reason being is that 80 to 90% of all connecting occurs on this level. 80 to 90% of all connecting occurs in one-on-one situations. And it's here that you're going to be connecting with the people that are most important to you. So first tip number 1 is talk more about the other person and less about yourself. Many people will struggle with just walking up and striking up a conversation with an individual, especially if you're an introvert. And it helps to always have 2 or 3 questions prepared that you can ask someone prior to meeting them, either in a group setting or in a social gathering. Now, for those of you that struggle with striking up a conversation, I'm going to share with you a little tip, and I would challenge you to remember the FORM technique, FORM. This is a technique that was developed by an old Amway salesman. Now, FORM is an acronym for family, occupation, recreation, and message. Family, occupation, recreation, and message. If you can center your opening conversations around those four things, you're going to find that the conversations are going to almost flow freely in that situation. Tip number 2 is bring something of value to share with them. It can be a quote, a storybook, a CD. It doesn't have to be anything that costs money even, but bring something to give to someone when you're together. Now, this is going to require a little bit of effort on your part because you're going to need to know what they value and what's important to them. And social media has made this extremely easy. People are always tweeting. People are always on LinkedIn. They're on Facebook, Instagram, and you're going to be able to tell what's most important to them just by doing a little bit of legwork on that. And the third tip, at the close of the conversation, and this is the one that I love the most, at the close of the conversation, ask if there is anything that you can do to help them, and then follow through on it. Acts of kindness and servanthood are more memorable than any words that you can ever share. Now, when I'm doing business development for my speaking and coaching business, I have what I call an IPA. Now, for my beer fans that are on the call, I don't mean that tasty beverage at your local pub. What I mean is an IPA, Income Producing Activity Worksheet. And this is a worksheet that every single day I work off of as I'm implementing the law of priorities. And this form is from one of my workshops called the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. The law of priorities states that leaders understand that activity is not necessarily accomplishment. I'm going to say that again. Leaders understand that activity is not necessarily accomplishment. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen Susie or Johnny running through the office, notepads in hand with an energy level. They're on 10. They're always jotting something down in the notebook. And you look at them and you think, my goodness, that person is busy. And if you ask them, the first thing that they will tell you, and you'll hear them say is, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. This job is killing me. What am I going to do? And if any of you know coworkers like that, I'm sure if you think about it that for a minute that you do. Well, these individuals are usually busy talking about being busy. And although they're moving from one point to another, they are getting very, very little accomplished. Back to the law of priorities, not all activity yields accomplishment. So this IPA worksheet, Income Producing Activity Worksheet, allows me to systematically break out my week and focus on those activities that will produce the greatest results. So imagine, if you will, a sheet of paper, horizontal, with Sunday through Saturday at the top. And beneath each day, I have 3 to 5 empty squares lined up. And then below those empty squares, I've got roughly 30 activities that I can pick and choose from at any given time to fill up each of those squares. Now, these tasks can range from everything from attending a networking event, making 10 cold calls, maybe send 10 to 15 cold emails, facilitate a mastermind. Understand, I don't list the result, but I list the activity which will get me to that result. And I pick these activities and I place them in each of all the boxes. And I do this every single day without fail, usually marking off Saturday or Sunday because I take those days off. But week over week, month over month. And what this does is that it allows me to implement a system and measure my activity that produces the results, and then readjust my course accordingly for what's not working. Now, one of the things that I learned a long time ago is how important systems are to managing and to leading to results. A system isn't going to guarantee your success. I will be the first to say that. But what it will do is increase the likelihood of being successful. One of the activities is what I call my, going back to that third tip, how can I be of service? One of the activities is what I call my feel-good activity. And this is where I play semi-warm, how can I help you calls. And I'll do 5 calls to people that I meet at trainings and networking events or webinars just like this. And basically, it goes something like this. Hey, Eric, this is Greene. We met at the Zoholics conference earlier this year, and we chatted briefly. I wanted to reach out and see how the wife's new business is going. And also ask, how can I help you? How can I be of service? And then I shut up. You would be amazed at some of the responses in the conversations that this has opened up. This does 2 things. It shows that number one, I listened to that individual when he told me about his wife starting her own business and some of the struggles, and I incorporate that third tip that I mentioned. And that small, unselfish act of kindness has created some of the most unique opportunities for me to add value to others and to get to know people through a more meaningful connection. So I would challenge you as a salesperson, as a leader, to make sure that you have one of those, how can I be of service activities, even if it's once a week? And you're not asking for anything. It's not what services can I offer you to charge you for, but how can I be of service? So the big question is, say that you've done some of these things. You may be thinking about, okay, you know what, you've done these, but how do I know if I'm truly connecting? And that's a great question. Can you hear me now? Most people who disconnect aren't even aware that they've disconnected from you or that you've disconnected from them because they're just not aware of the connecting signals. But there are these signs, and these signals basically will let you know when you're making that connection. So we're quickly going to run through these. Number one is extra effort. People will go the extra mile for you. You're going to begin to see a shift in their work ethic. You're going to find those individuals beginning to be champions for your cause when you need them to be. If you've ever tried to implement change in an organization, as a leader, you probably already know one of the most difficult things to do is to get people to buy into your vision. So I saw a few that mentioned vision wasn't part of the connecting practices, but that is extremely important because you have to get people to buy into your vision. An accelerator for this to happen is to have a champion that can help usher your vision through. Increase communication. People will begin to express themselves more readily to you, not just about business, but about everyday topics as well. Positive energy. People are going to feel renewed by being around you and the energy that you're bringing to the table. And that energy can be infectious on a team. It can be a game changer. If an individual is disconnected and they have a horrible attitude, it spreads like wildfire. And the same goes for positive energy. Unsolicited appreciation. People will begin to say positive things both to you and to others about you. You don't have to ask them for their feedback. They're going to just volunteer that feedback. You won't have to probe them to get answers that you're looking for. Enjoyable experiences. People will feel good about their contribution to the bottom line and what they're doing. There is nothing more rewarding for an employee than to feel that you value them, you value their time and their commitment. Growing synergy. The team level of effectiveness is greater than the sum of the contributions. The outcome is going to be far greater due to that synergy. Unguarded openness. People will demonstrate a level of trust with you that wasn't there previously. Now, this could be related to an area where they may or may not be as efficient in, or something even more personal in their lives. But when they do this, you have to make sure that you create a safe environment that continues to foster this dialogue between the two. And emotional bondedness. People will display a connection on an emotional level. Unconditional love. Now, we're going to get a little sappy here, but stay with me. People are going to be more accepting without reservation. Now, this is one of the last connecting signals to come because it is one of the most difficult ones to achieve. And we'll talk a little bit more about that trust factor next week and what it means. But to gain that level of trust and respect from someone is the ultimate connecting signal. You have to understand that there's going to be a direct correlation between your success and your ability to connect. So just making sure everybody's still with me. Just a quick show of hands or a quick yes. Is this information helpful so far? Are you getting something out of it? Some value? If you're getting some value, let me see you type yes. All right, we've got a few yeses rolling in. All right, wonderful. So the second connecting principle is that connecting is all about others. People automatically think that connecting is a skill, and while it is a skill, I'll be honest, it is a skill that can be learned. It is more based on attitude about people than it is in connecting with people. Connecting with people is as much of an attitude about people as it is a skill in being able to connect with people. So because we're leaders, we automatically think it's about getting our people to connect with us. And we believe because we're the leader, They should automatically follow us because we have the knowledge. If we can get them to buy into our vision, if I can get them to buy into my leadership style, if I can get them to connect with me, then I will be good. But here's the deal. If you take nothing else from this webinar, please remember this. People do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. I'm going to say that again because I want to make sure that you take this away with you. People do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. Zig Ziglar once said, if you will help people get what they want, they will help you get what you want. We have to shift our focus on others and start helping them to be successful. And when that happens, the rate of return is going to be tenfold for you and for the organization. And this is so important to understand. Now, this is where the science of connecting comes in. We each have these, what I would call different representational systems. Now, not to reveal too much, as I'm going to be talking more about this next week in the connecting practices, but these representational systems are the basis and the foundation for our thoughts and feelings. Understanding that connecting is connected to emotions and tapping into that is extremely vital. So going back to the results for a moment, the reason that learning to connect can make such a difference to our results, to all of our results, is that it's such a neglected skill. Most people don't even give any thought whatsoever to developing their ability to connect with people. And it's either because they don't see it as a skill or they don't see it as important. And because of that, they don't give it any thought whatsoever. It's outside of their awareness. They're not conscious of the impact that it has on them or the team around them. And this it wouldn't be such a problem if people weren't so emotional. Human beings are emotional creatures at heart. We have an intellect, sure, we kid ourselves that we are rational, logical human beings, but that is a facade. We are emotional creatures. Emotions rule our lives. So why is this a problem? Well, how many of you have heard something along the lines of, oh, he does it if you push his buttons, or you got to know how to get her going? We can all be logical in certain situations, but there are others that with a certain trigger can flip our switch and we simply can't help ourselves. Some people connect intuitively and they have a high interpersonal intelligence and they seem to value people automatically, whereas others, they recognize connecting as important but lack the tools and the techniques they need to learn to do what others do intuitively. So while some people don't recognize connecting as important at all, and they think they can do it all on their own, they don't need other people, they don't need to why rely on others when it's quicker to do it yourself? If you want something done, do it right. Do it yourself to get it done right. They'd only let you down anyway, right? Wrong. There is no bigger myth than that. The better we are able to connect with other people, the better the results will be. So to continue to outline the problem, picture this. Here's a typical leader in an organization. He or she may be the owner of the company or the vice president or the manager of sales or any kind of leader within the team. It doesn't matter. Now, earlier, I said that everyone wants to improve their results. So the company owner wants to improve their results, the leader wants to improve his results, and everyone on the team wants to improve their results. Now, given that we're all different, we can assume that we all want different results, right? Different things are important to us based on our different representational systems. So we could represent this graphically as an arrow. This person at the top wants to go in their direction, person in the middle in their direction, and etc. Ultimately, in order to get the results we need, we have to shift our focus, our attitude, and fully understand the concept of exponential growth. Because although as a leader, we may think we can do it faster and better, and if I can just add an extra 10% of effort, then my team is going to thrive. But the reality is that exponential factor creeps in. So a true leader, a true connector understands if they can just get 10% additional out of everybody in the team, then it adds up to far more than they can contribute themselves. And this is an important graph. 10% from each additional person will yield you greater results than you trying to do 10% or 20% yourself, and you'll probably will keep your sanity in the process. Think back to the definition of leadership when we first started. Leadership is influence. Leadership is being able to get those results through others. It's all about others. But the reason connecting is such a skill, it's much more complicated than that. than just saying, okay, I'm going to get more out of others. It's not something that you can just decide or even legislate. You have to connect. And they realize that there is an exponential factor there that is going to just maximize those results. So you may be thinking, okay, you know what? All this is easy. Tell me something I don't know, Captain Obvious. Well, this seems easy in theory, I would agree, but in practice, it doesn't prove to be. And if it's so simple, why do we continue to focus on ourselves versus focusing on others? And what we found is that when you boil everything down, when the rubber meets the road, there are three key reasons that prevent us from connecting and making the experience about others. They're immaturity, ego, and the failure to value everyone. These are three key reasons that prevent us from connecting and making the experience about others. Immaturity. I don't mean in age, I mean in our careers. Many times it's because we haven't had someone that's taken the opportunity to truly mentor us or witness truly effective leadership. And as a result, we develop these blind spots. And these blind spots will kill us every single time. There are 5 levels of leadership that I teach about from top to bottom: positional, permission, production. Number 4 is people development. And the 5th, the highest to strive for, is the pinnacle level: positional, permission, production, people development, and number 5 is the pinnacle level. Now, oftentimes, so-called leaders will manage from that first level, which is positional leadership. And it's at this level that your only influence comes by way of your job title. People are simply following you because they have to. These are usually the my way or the highway leaders. If any of you have ever had a my way or highway leader, give me a quick yes in the chat box. My way or highway leaders, a quick yes. Now, there are a few things that happen when you have this leadership style. Number 1, your influence decreases. Number 2, productivity decreases. And number 3, your employee churn increases. From a positional leadership level, your influence decreases, your productivity decreases, and your employee churn increases. You simply cannot be effective this way. You do not want to be at this level. Think back to the first connecting practice and one of the connecting signals. People are going to go the extra effort for you. And when you're managing at that level, what you're going to find is that people who are following you, assuming they are, will give you the least amount of their energy and effort. And you're going to get the very least of people's energy, effort, and mind power. Second on the list is ego. We think it's all about us. I don't want to give up control because this is my baby and I can do it better than you. No one can do it as good as me. Ego. And third on the list, the failure to value everyone. Our failure to value everyone causes us to not connect with anyone. There's a story of a professor. There were a group of students and they were working on their RN degrees and they were taking their final exam. And the very last question on that final exam read, "What is the name of the cleaning lady that cleans our room?" Laughing out loud, one of the students raises their hand and he asks, "Okay, is this a serious question? Is this really going to count?" And the professor says, "Yes, absolutely it is. It's going to count as much as all of the other questions because you have to understand you aren't in the medical business, you are in the people business. And knowing the name of the cleaning lady is going to be essential for you to be successful in life." Now, what was he saying here? That we have to go out and remember every single person's name that we come across? Of course not. But you do need to value everyone, regardless of their role in their company, their race, their background, the job that they're doing, or their social status in life. As a leader, you are in the people business. I want to drive that home. As a leader, you are in the people business. You are in the business of increasing your influence with others and bringing value to them in and out of that company. You have an obligation to them. Now, when making a choice to follow you, there are going to be 3 questions that any person is going to ask themselves. And these questions may be asked of themselves consciously or even subconsciously. But rest assured, this I can guarantee you, every single person that chooses to follow you is asking this. And these 3 questions are, number 1, do you care for me? They're asking these questions to know that you value them. Anybody that is listening and following wants to know that you care for them and about them, their well-being, the things that are important to them, and their values. Do you care for me? Number two is, can you help me? In other words, are things going to get better for me if I follow you? Is this utopia on the other side over here? Is it really true? And third on the list is, can I trust you? Is what you're telling me the truth? Are you going to be able to deliver on the results that's driving this change? Folks, trust within an organization is the foundation for growth. Without it, you are going to be stifled and you're going to struggle 10 times more than you would by developing that trust. You have to get that trust factor in. The ability to connect and understand that it's all about others. Anyone that is self-consumed with themselves, worried about their own success, looking good themselves, will never connect with people. To connect with people, you have to forget yourself. The third connecting principle, and the final one, is connecting always requires energy. Connecting always requires energy. Now let's talk about what I mean for a moment about that. There are 4 unpardonable sins of a communicator they are unprepared, uncommitted, uncomfortable, and uninteresting. Unprepared, uncommitted, uninteresting, and uncomfortable. And 3 of these 4 obstacles require a lot of effort and energy to overcome. So how do you overcome these if these are anywhere in your life? Well, connecting requires initiative. As a leader, you have to go first. A good example of this is Walmart. My daughter loves going to Walmart. And for me, I absolutely hate it. Going to Walmart, honestly, I kid you not, it gives me the hives and it frustrates me beyond no end. I'm itching right now thinking about Walmart. Now, back in the day, Walmart would have a series of signs hung up all over the store, and there was one that was titled the 10-foot rule. And the 10-foot rule states that if anyone is within a 10-foot radius of you, that you take that opportunity to speak to them, ask them if they need anything, or if you can help them find something. Now, they've obviously lost the meaning of that rule over time. But can you imagine, as leaders, if we operated on the 10-foot rule in business, in the community? Think about the perception that those with whom we come in contact with would respond. First, honestly, they would probably think we were just crazy. And then they would start catching on and they would be open to speaking to people. Next thing you know, we'd have the 10-foot movement. It's basic. Just take the initiative to go first. In John Maxwell's book, The 25 Ways to Win with People, he highlights as one of the ways, be the first to help. You get a 10-to-1 return when you do this. There's a huge difference between the person that steps up first and anyone else that you have to ask to help. Michael Bain says, if you wait until you can do everything for everybody instead of something for somebody, you'll end up not doing anything for anybody. And that's so true, isn't it? Number 2, connecting requires clarity, being very clear on what has to happen and being prepared to deliver on it. You also have to ensure that you're communicating what's at hand to your team, what your team heard versus what you're trying to communicate. And a tip to ensure that you're achieving this is important to implement perception checks. Once you deliver a directive, a vision, or instructions, ask the individual what he or she heard you say. Number 3 is connecting requires patience. Leaders tend to move fast. It's just usually one of those innate qualities of a good leader. But we also have to remember to slow down. They are always ahead, always thinking ahead. They usually have an initiative edge on others, but this has to be a conscious effort that we slow down. And this is sometimes hard for us to learn because many times we need to move at warp speed. I get that. I ran a global organization for one of the fastest growing e-commerce consulting firms. And they brought me on board because they found that a piece of the business was kind of getting left behind in terms of how they were servicing their clients, the technology they were using, and from a process and procedural standpoint. And I came on board and I inherited 2 teams in Europe and a couple of teams in North America. And I flew over to Europe approximately 2 weeks after I started my job. And I had a tried and true process that I had applied to companies previously. Now, historically, the system, it worked like a charm. So I thought for sure it would work here, without worry. Now, for those of you that read quite a bit and have ever read What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith, this was a perfect example of just that. I flew over there, spent 3 days in Europe, observed one day, documented some changes the next day, and rolled them out on the following day. I was moving at neckbreak speed. And I boarded that plane in a hurry to get back to the States, a smile on my face, a pep in my step, patting myself on the back all the way through customs, because I thought I had the ball rolling all of a sudden. Now, that Monday, I go in to the office, and of course, their day started approximately 6 hours earlier. And by 9 a.m., it was complete chaos. You see, what I thought I had communicated to them actually missed its mark, and I failed to connect. I failed to take the time and truly understand the cultural nuances that you have to be careful of when running a global organization. I spent very little time with them, failed to implement perception checks and ensure they understood me and I understood them. In fact, I did one of the worst things a leader could do. I did that thing called seagull management. Now, some of you may be familiar with seagull management. Seagull management is when a leader or a manager basically flies in, they swoop in for a brief period of time. You've been working on a project for a period of time, and they fly in, and all of a sudden they just poop all over everything, and then they swoop back out. Seagull management. This is something that as a leader, I can assure you that you do not want to do. Take it from me and learn from my mistake. I quickly learned that in order for me to succeed with this team and move the organization in a positive direction, I would need to be patient. So what I did was I started learning Russian. Instead of being there for 3 days or so, I would stay for 3 weeks. I started having more in-depth conversations with them, and ultimately I slowed down and waited for them so that we could walk together. Henry David Thoreau summed it up when he said, "The man who goes alone can start the day, but he who travels with another must wait until the other is ready." Connecting requires selflessness. In other words, they give. They give of their time, their knowledge, and their energy. And this isn't always easy, especially in stressful and volatile situations. But connecting always begins with a commitment to someone else. As a leader, you will need to come to terms with your time is not your time. I was talking with the VP of mine from many years ago, and we were talking about the time and the day, and I was complaining because people just kept coming into my office and asking for things. And he said, let me sum up my day for you. And he says he wakes up with his dog licking him in the face, wanting to be taken out. After that, he gets ready for work. And at that point, the children are up and the wife is in full motion, of which comes more requests. "Daddy, I need this. I have this. Can you do this?" And then he says he goes to work, and from the start of the day until the end of it, it's a constant cycle of people coming into the office, calling or emailing or trying to get some of his time in some capacity. And then he goes home and he starts evening routines with the kids, taking them to their friend's house, their practices, and he closes up shop with the dog sitting by the door, waiting for him to take him out again. Now, my point is, you have to come to terms that as a leader, your time is not your time, and that requires this very selfless attitude. Fifth is connecting requires stamina. So you're going to need to recharge your battery. If you're responsible for leading people or communicating with others, it is extremely important for you to find ways to recharge. You have to find a way to get your energy back. For me, recharging is traveling, golfing horribly, I might add, being in the sun. You'll need to identify what those energy leaks are as well and plug those leaks. Figure out what drains you of your energy and is unnecessary, and eliminate those things from your life. Now, before we wrap up, I really want to do one last poll question here. And that is, which principle resonates with you the most? Which principle resonates with you the most out of the three? Influence, and connecting increases your influence with others in every situation. Connecting is all about others. And connecting requires energy. All right, give it about 10 more seconds here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Poll is closed. Results: 38% influence resonated with them, 31% it's all about others, and 31% connecting requires energy. This is pretty interesting. It's pretty split up all the way around. So before we wrap up, it's almost just about time, so I'm going to leave it right there. But hopefully we've covered some really good information that you'll not only find interesting, but some ideas that you can start using right away as well. But just before we finish up, let me cover this because I think it's key to any kind of a program change. And I really want this to stick home with you. This presentation is normally pretty well received. It gets a lot of good information in it, but the trouble is it doesn't have the impact that it needs to have for one simple reason. Change is an event. It's a process. We have a tendency to overestimate the event and underestimate the process. I'm going to say that again. We have a tendency to overestimate the event and underestimate the process. You see, an event which is important, it won't develop you as a communicator and a connector, but it can get you started on becoming better. If you think about it, to develop as a communicator and a connector, we are talking about changing our behaviors, and unfortunately, we can't just snap our finger and be changed. So it requires action on your part. And I'll close with this. I hope this session has added value to you today. I want to thank you for your attentiveness and thank you to Zoho for allowing me to be able to share this material with you. If you have any interest or bringing this content that you heard here today into your organization, or if you would like to learn more about either myself or the John Maxwell team, you can find my information down here in the bottom right-hand corner. Feel free to email me at info@israelgreene.com. And I just want to say thank you again, and I look forward to chatting with you next week. So we're going to open it up to questions.
Thank you very much, Israel, for presenting connecting principles from Everyone Communicates We Connect. Now we have come to the end of the webinar. We hope you found it useful. Don't forget to post your tweets for a chance to win a surprise. Make sure you tag us at Zoho CRM and use hashtag #SalesLeaders. Also, don't forget to join us on our next webinar, Everyone Communicates We Connect, Part 2, next Wednesday, February 14th. Thanks for joining us once again.